Hey everybody, Phil here doing another demonstration of Communalytic. So I found this video with Peter, I don't know how you describe the name, Peter Boghausen, whatever. And I just figured it was going to be a controversial and culture studies related thing, so there should be lots of comments even though it's only, a few days old or whatever. So it looks like there's 2,600 comments about. And so we're going to go through Communalytic and see what kind of information we can grab from it, maybe what the potential kind of flaws or issues or restrictions might be. So obviously I'm going through YouTube with this one. And I guess really the first part here is I'm going to name this. I'm probably going to botch the name. Let's see if I can get that going. Hoping that's it. And then we have to copy and paste the YouTube URL. So going back and doing that. All right, and the collection has started. So it's going to churn through and collect all of the different the comments that have come through there. So I guess we can continue by clicking that check progress. It went through pretty quickly and gave me all the different records. So sometimes, if you're using this and it feels like you're getting nowhere, you might need to click that check progress button that I just went ahead and did. So we've collected the data and we've got all the different comments here. Let's go ahead and look at this toxicity analysis. So let's use the detoxify model. And I think I'm just going to take a look here and sort of discover what this module is all about. Uses AI models to detect the level of toxicity in online conversations, powered by two machine learning APIs, Detoxify and Perspective. The module can be used to analyze posts in your dataset and can generate the following toxicity scores: toxic or toxicity, severe toxicity, identity attack, insult, profanity, and threat. Let's see if there's anything else. Communalytic will only analyze the first 3,000 characters of each post. Posts longer than 3,000 characters will be automatically truncated. So I guess there's a restriction there, but who's writing more than 3,000 characters really? That would have to be a very toxic person indeed. Prior to running the analysis, the module excludes the following: usernames, hashtags, cache tags, and URLs. Okay. Resulting scores can be downloaded as CSVs. Oh, that's good. Supports these languages, and the perspective model supports these other languages. Okay, so I'm going to go with the detoxify, and let's go ahead and start the analysis. So it's going to really churn through this, and well, I guess it's going to take a minute to go through that whole bit. Now you can, of course, check progress just like we've done before by hitting this button, or it's going to go ahead and refresh itself with this countdown. So, it took about half a minute to get through 7 of these. So I imagine this is actually going to take quite a little bit. So I'm going to let this crank through its process, and I'll join you back here in a minute. Well, I was afraid that while this analysis is in progress that I wouldn't be able to do any other things, but it looks like I can go ahead and look through some of these other things while this sort of does its thing in the background, although it does say it's going to take 47 minutes. Let's go ahead and look at some of this other information that's available to us here. So the posts per day is pretty interesting. So based on the comments from this 8-day-old video, it's showing me comments in reflection with the replies to those comments. So you can see, the sort of like gradual thing is like, well, maybe the video was released on this day and only a few people caught wind of it, and then the next day is when, its popularity really increased, and then it gradually sort of tapers off. So that's, I would kind of expect that for a video of this nature. It would be pretty rare, I think, to see something that's just really flat all the time. But that's kind of interesting to see. Well, what is this really telling us? Like, I guess we can see based on how many comments, how many people are actually, engaging with those comments and really creating a conversation. All right. Then we've got a word cloud that's generated for us. This chart shows the 100 most frequently used words based on the first 1,000 posts. So that's a little less than half of the number of comments, but it's still, I think I would consider that to be pretty comprehensive. I'm going to go ahead and download the picture. So then, of course, if I was doing research on this, I would have access to this content here. Pretty cool. And the emoji cloud. Now, this is really cool. This chart shows the 100 most frequently used emojis based on the first 1,000 posts. So restricted on those posts again, the number. But pretty interesting. Look at that. I'm going to download this as well so I can collect all of this information. And who is posting the most? So this is going to tell us who the big players are, right? Or at least who has the most interest in this content. So it looks like, I can see on here that Peter himself is on here, so he's engaging. At least I'm assuming that that's actually him, right? I mean, it doesn't say official or something, but then there's all these other players in there as well. And who's really taking up 55 comments on this one video? It's a lot of engagement. Okay. So that's some pretty interesting information, and I love how it just easily cranks out these visualizations for you. Pretty awesome. So that was all of these different functions right here. We're currently going through the toxicity analysis, so let's go ahead and check back in with that. And it looks like we've got quite a while left. So again, I'm going to take a little break, and I'll come back when this has completed. So here are the results from the toxicity analysis. It did take, it's worth noting that this took over an hour to do. So it was about 2,600 comments, and yeah, it took over an hour to eventually get through. It started out saying it was going to be about 40 minutes or so, but it took about an hour. So we already know what the module is doing, but here's our results. Communalytic analyzed 2,537 posts out of the 2,632 using Detoxify. Posts without texts and posts in languages that are not supported were skipped. So I guess that's where that difference comes from, is the ones that were skipped. So I'm going to go ahead and download the full data set as a CSV, but I'm also going to go back and look. So, this could come in handy, if I was going to compile toxicity over maybe different videos posted by the same person or like-minded people or something like that. I can see where that value could come in. But let's look specifically at what this toxicity analysis gave us. So again, these are the levels of toxicity, from toxic and severely toxic, identity attack, insult, profanity, and threat. So we have pretty widespread here. It's giving us averages and highest values and lowest values for each of those different categories. So you can see that the highest value, there are some comments that are 100% toxic, I guess is what that's supposed to mean. And there are some that are 100% or 99% insulting, 89% of an identity attack, 95% filled with profanity. Those are interesting numbers. Although I can't say that I'm surprised that people, YouTube users and commenters go on to just use profanity or just insult people. I guess that's not what's surprising. Average toxicity scores per day, so it's giving us information about each of these categories based on the day since posting, right? So I think that could be valuable. The biggest thing that's been changing here is the toxicity level, right? So everything sort of started out in like this plateau, right? All of the different categories, but the toxicity level fluctuates a little bit more than the rest, or at least is a little bit more dynamic, I would say. So I think that I'm glad that Communalytic breaks it down into these different categories, because there's certainly different information or assumptions that you can make or conclusions that you can draw from these different areas. Let's look at the toxicity score distribution chart. So it looks like, the highest values are on the low end. So what that would tell me, or what I am, the conclusions that I'm drawing, is that most of the people that are commenting on this material, this piece of content, are supportive of it, right? Because this low end represents a small amount of toxicity, the lowest amount. And that's where the majority is. However, you can see that sort of like die down, and then there's this valley, but then it starts to amp up. I'm surprised that at the far extreme it's not even higher. But I do see that gradual increase because, I guess what you can draw from that is that people that are really passionate about a particular subject are going to be the ones that are the most vocal about it, right? So that's why there's this sort of drop in the middle. Identity attack scores distribution. So not very heavy. And I would assume, again, these are assumptions. I would like to see maybe we compare this to a politician, or, Peter's like an educator. It's just sort of, I guess he's just a different sort of public figure. I imagine that the identity attack would be much different. If we did this identity attack stuff on perhaps, staying in the same realm of content, on like a Dylan Mulvaney video or something like that, maybe there would be a bunch more identity attack. That would be an interesting thing to look at. So again, like this information is really interesting because, you can compare and contrast between these different people, and that can give you a lot of information. But what it doesn't tell me, I think, is the motivation behind who's commenting and why. It just gives us, sort of that strict data about who is doing it and when. Just no whys. All right, the insult scores distribution, very similar. So we've got a lot of positivity, or a lot of people that, I guess it's sort of the opposite of that. It's not positivity, it's just not insulting, right? And then it goes down and it drops off completely, and then it like ramps up just a little bit towards the high values there. Profanity scores distribution, very, very similar, although even more heavily skewed over here. So, would it be fair to say that if profanity scores are so low like this, that even the people that are choosing to comment and insult and attack identities are better educated because they're not using so much profanity? Again, I keep saying the word assumption. Yes, these are all assumptions, but we're not. Communalytic is not giving us demographic information about the individuals. It's just giving us the information that is found within the comments. So I wonder if there is some way to be able to mix both of those pieces of information, and that would be really useful, I think. Threat scores, there's almost no threat in these. That's nice to see. Let's move on to this sentiment analysis and see if we can get something different out of this. Um, this one is going to work through much faster than the last, so I'll stick with it, but we can learn more about what it's doing. The sentiment analysis module detects the polarity of text in your data set in the following languages. It can be used to determine if posts in your data set express neutral, negative, or positive sentiments. You know, it's interesting that you have to separate the two things, the toxicity and the sentiment. Like, wouldn't you probably draw the conclusion that if you're attacking identity that you have a negative sentiment? But this algorithm is going to look at things a little bit differently. So there, we already finished the sentiment analysis. So that happened, I didn't have to stop the video or anything. That happened within 2 minutes. And it's telling me that based on, out of 2,632 posts, we analyzed this many. There's obviously some restrictions that things got skipped. Let's see. So in English, we've got a third negative, neutral, and then about half is a positive sentiment. Now, again, whose definition of positive and negative or whatever are we using here? You know, that's an argument in itself. The distribution of polarity values. Okay, lots in the middle. So let's see, what does this mean? The two different Vader and text blob. So I like to look at what both libraries agree on. This is like two different ways of looking at the same information. I'm going to go ahead and download the full data set again, just so I have this material. You know, what if the computer crashed and all this stuff went away? Wouldn't you want to make sure that you had all that stuff? Both agreement and disagreement counts across sentiment labels. So this is where the overlaps are. That's cool. All right, and finally, let's look at the network analysis here. I kind of want to look through both of these, so maybe we'll see what happens if we look through both. So we'll go to reply to network, and we'll generate that. And pretty quickly, I think we'll get this one. So let's go ahead and visualize. Well, maybe I'll download to Gephi so I can import this into Gephi later if I would like. And let's visualize this. Look at all these constellations. It still blows my mind to look at these nodes and everything. But let's get in there and look at our leaders. Lou Reed and Capybara, making lots of comments. And one of these is going to be Peter himself, right? The creator of the content, right? So when you click on a node, only nodes that are directly connected to the selected node are shown. So that immediately thinned out what I'm looking at, right? So then you can see, well, are these people really only just, maybe, if this Capybara user and maybe Lou Reed. Let's just pretend that those were the only two present and they were large like this. When I click on one, that means that, like, well, if those are the only two present, that means that they make lots and lots of comments, but only to each other. And that looks like it's the case. So when I click on Lou Reed, these are the players now that are interacting with Lou Reed. And then if I click off of it, we see that the network is so much larger. So let's see who's directly interacting with Peter. And we'll see that it's actually much smaller. So there's really only a handful of people that are talking directly to the creator of the content. When we click off, then we see, wow, these really heavy hitters, the people that are really involved in this conversation and making lots and lots of frequent comments, are not even talking directly to the person. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, but it could be really useful if you, depending on what lens you're sort of looking at, or what this research is being used for. All right, I'm going to go back to network analysis, and I'm going to download the full data set. And there you have it. That's Communalytic finding out some, like tooling around with, analyzing YouTube comments from particular videos from a specific person, trying to make sense out of the toxicity analysis and the sentiment analysis and all that, different ways that it could be useful to you. Obviously, Communalytic can be used for, different things such as existing data sets that you might have, or, even the ones that I've downloaded from this particular data set can be re-imported and evaluated again in comparison to other data sets from other users, other people, or whether that's like-minded individuals or opposite-minded, who knows, right? These other platforms that could be used for this. But I've found that Communalytic, in comparison to Netlytic and Gephi, I think this is the one that I've become most interested in and found that has the most potential value for sort of quantifying this affect that we've been dealing with in this course. Hopefully you found something useful through me tooling around with this, and I'll see you around.